laying on the ground, and their ice chest and everything
even
was
coat, and it was wintertime.
Was underneath the tent. And you could see hadn't been nobody around there for a day or two.
Where were you from?
I was in my pickup.
It was up north somewhere.
I just loaded everything up, put it in my
way.
truck, and took it back up to the station. I thought maybe they'd come back looking for it, you know. But I kept it about 3 months, and they never did show up again. Well, I guess sometime during the night, the bugger had scared the heck out of him. But a couple of months later, my dad and my ex-wife and my children had gone down there one evening, down to the farm, looking around. And my kids went off down to the edge of the timber, about 100 yards down there playing. They come running back up there real scared. Other that they'd seen a big hairy thing down there. So my dad and my ex-wife went back down there. And he was standing right in the edge of the timber. They said he didn't act like he did. Kind of bent over and looked at him like that. Scratched around on his body 2 or 3 times. Then he just turned and went on into the woods, not running. He just took his time about leaving, but they was already excited so bad they're running over one another getting back to the truck.
Up near Atlanta, Texas, I had to make this woman come out with the story. She didn't want to be on tape. She did do an audio tape. She said she noticed the pears off a pear tree. This is near Falk, Arkansas, by the way. As a crow flies, it's not very far through there. And said right when she, about dusk, he said she see something moving in a pear orchard out there. And she went out there and it went back into the woods. It looked like it had long hair all over it. And so she began baiting it, and she put pears all along the fence, and it would come up and reach out with its long hairy arms and take the pears off the back fence. And she observed that for 2 or 3 weekends by putting the pears where it could reach for them. But she could never go outside, or she could get close enough. And she was very reluctant to tell me the story. And when I find people that are very reluctant, I say, well, they're not seeking notoriety. And I'm not seeking notoriety. I just know what I know, and I know what I saw. I know I was scared to death.
Me and several friends were out riding around and ended up at a place called Baikal Reservoir in north central Louisiana. And we were stopped on top of the dam. The moon was high. It was a high moon, very bright. And me and one friend were outside the car. We were just sitting around talking, smoking cigarettes, and all of a sudden we noticed that there was something coming up the side of the dam. So we got quiet, waited. Something came up on the top of the dam, and it was very large, very big, walking at a very slow gait, arms swinging just a little bit exaggerated. And of course, we were pretty scared at the time. It was awesome.
A young boy over near Uncertain, Texas was walking home from school, and he said a huge ape man came out of the woods, and he ran all the way home. Ran out of his shoes, dropped his books, and they looked it up in the encyclopedia, his dad, and the only thing he could see was a large gorilla. I went back and interviewed the boy. The boy, shoes were still laying in the gravel road by the bayou. He was not lying, he was still scared, and the sheriff was standing there with kind of a bored look like he didn't believe it. And I told the boy, I said, boy, if you're making this up, I said, you're gonna be in big trouble because I'm fixing to put you on television. Now's the time to tell me. Robert says he was back there coon hunting with coon dogs, and says, this big, hairy man came out of him, and he had orange eyes, and he reached out at him. My daddy shot it in the chest with a shotgun and said he didn't stop. He said, my daddy come running out of the woods and the coon dog's behind him. And he said, I want to show you something, Mr. Mac. He said, watch this. He said, Mr. Mac, hey, dogs, let's go to the woods and go hunting. Every one of those 6 or 8 mongrel dogs went under the house, whining with their tails between their legs.
In Falk, Arkansas, and he claims that he and a friend were in the woods with their metal detector looking for old Civil War relics, you know, bullets and stuff. They claim that they were on the road, and the creature jumped out at them and just scared the bejesus out of them. And they got so excited they ran away, and they got on their motorcycle and were so scared that they wrecked it on the way out of the woods.
Come on.
Set up an interview with a couple, and she claims that her and her boyfriend were out, you know, necking or whatever you want to call it.
I heard something.
There's nothing out there.
I heard something. I know there's something out there.
Reports and sightings continue to pour in. Apparently, this thing's got a mate. Of course, I guess it would have to. When the hunt for Bigfoot continues, we're going back deep into the creature's habitat.
Going back into the bottoms to take a hunting party. There's a family from out of state coming in to go back in the bottoms and hopefully get a glimpse of the monster, and they're gonna have some camera equipment, hopefully get a picture of him. There's women folks with them, and I always take a big gun, not to try to kill the monster. He's never hurt nobody, and we don't intend to hurt him. But there's wolves and alligators and a lot of animals that could have rabies and stuff like that, so.
Old Fritz.
Hello, Steve.
Hey, Smokey.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too, my
I'll see
friend.
you, Sizer.
We're fixing to go into the bottoms. That's what you want to do.
Yeah, that's what I come down here for. You hang on.
Well, we'll get it on.
Get there,
I'll
Sizer, get in
put
there.
the boat in, and
Okay.
I'll go scouting a little bit ahead of y'all, and
All right,
I'll
Sizer, get up
get
and
with
work.
you, and I'll leave some markers and trails.
All right, yeah, make sure they're good mark.
The hunt began slowly, and for the better part of the morning, Smokey stayed within sight of the family, concerned about the amount of wilderness experience that the Pace family possessed. However, by early afternoon, Smokey had pushed on ahead of the family in order to scout out any dangers. But for the Pace family, the intense midsummer heat of Arkansas was more than they had bargained for, and the camouflage that had at one point seemed necessity was now a burden. Becoming more and more concerned, Smokey left his Piro and headed out on foot deeper into the woods, careful to mark the trail for the family. With each passing hour, the frustration began to show. For Smokey, the frustration was yet another day in the bottoms in search of the creature whose unproven existence haunted him. Hot, tired, and in unfamiliar surroundings, they felt betrayed and abandoned by their guide, not to mention there had been no signs of the creature. Finally, they decided to do the only thing they could think of, stay put and wait for Smokey to find them. They didn't have to wait long. And after a slightly heated discussion, it was decided that the father and Smokey would get some night vision binoculars and charter a plane. A couple of times, Steve Pace thought he spotted something, but it was never more than a wild boar, or deer, or wolf. So, this hunt for Bigfoot ended uneventfully.
I do think that there is some unidentified creature in this area that people refer to as Bigfoot. I don't think that he is separate and apart from the other Bigfoot, Yeti, abominable snowman sightings that other people have reported from other parts of the world. I think that all of these creatures are interrelated and belong to a similar group.
I've got no idea. We've done so much research and study on it. I think that chances are it's crossed between something, somewhat from the gorilla family or the monkey family.
I feel that perhaps this creature is some sort of missing link between the primates and man as we know it. Perhaps science believed that these creatures had at one time become extinct, and now we're just rediscovering them and finding that maybe they're not as extinct as we had presumed. I do feel that these creatures are somewhat intelligent, but not as intelligent as man. I think that they operate to a large extent by instinct, and it's their instinct that's been able to keep them away from human beings and away from too much contact with man. I think that they instinctively have a distrust of man, and that there are a few of these creatures who have, over a period of time of exposure, allowed themselves to become more trusting of humans and have allowed themselves to be seen and photographed and followed. But generally, I feel like they have a tremendous fear of people.
No, I've never been afraid of it. I've always wanted to see it bad enough that I've took all kinds of chances to try to get to see it. But I've never been lucky enough to see it. I've been in the woods where it was hollering, where we'd get it to hollering.
About that time, it let out a loud, bellowing moan, and it was close this time. It was in underbrush about 30 feet away. Then it changed rapidly. Golly.
And then it goes into a big upbeat racket that it works itself up into. It makes some of these other rackets. And it'll work itself up into a screaming, real loud screaming, hollering sound that sounds like it's coming deep down inside. Something real big, maybe as big as an elephant. And in that racket, it's a real demanding sound, like it's claiming the territory, telling you to get out of it. And it puts cold chill bumps up your back.